Good morning. Today is the seventh day of Tevet, the day on which the Rebbe said, because of Hey Tevet, 2 days later, he said anybody who wanted to ask anything from Hashem, it's an open checkbook. That's at least what I read.
Whatever you ask for, you'll get.
On the 7th of Tevet.
Can we tell them the story?
It also happens to be...
Can we tell them the story?
You can tell a story.
I have to remember it because my mind is...
Okay, so when you remember it... So we'll do it in a few minutes. It's also the, I believe, 19th of December. Anybody know? Okay, good.
Who knows? Who cares?
Okay, so we talked a lot yesterday about the blue flame, the blue part of the flame, and what that is, the part that connects the flame to the wick, and why this is especially related to Moshe Rabbeinu. If you follow wonders, then yesterday I expanded on it a lot in wonders for Shmos, for Parshat Shmot in 2 weeks. So you'll see there a lot more about it. Very, very interesting thing about the Moshe Rabbeinu, the Shin in Moshe Rabbeinu versus the Ma in Moshe Rabbeinu. I remember if we said this yesterday, the Shin represents the 3 patriarchs, the Mem is Moshe, the Hey is Aaron, and he needed all 5 in order to have enough, let's call it feeling of self or pride, in order to go and face Paro in order to bring the Jewish people out of Egypt. In any case, moving on. So then we said that this was the argument made by the spies that Moshe Rabbeinu sent, that they said that it's Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea, it's a land that consumes its inhabitants. And they thought of it as a libel, as saying something against the land of Israel. But really, this is the blessing of the land of Israel. Why is it the blessing? Because here there's more of a chance that you will be consumed in the right way, meaning you'll spend your life giving your body, transforming it into spirituality. Otherwise, you may live 70, 80, 90, 100 years, and your body remains intact, and you never did anything of value with it. And there's no such thing, nobody ever does anything of value, but very little. And nothing was consumed. You didn't use your energy, you didn't use your body in the right way. And it says that's the blessing of the land of Israel, that it's a land that has a proclivity to encouraging you to use the gift that you've been given, your body, in the right way.
Oh, what did you say?
Proclivity.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but that's what we always use. Okay.
Made that up.
And he says, and this is, כי ביטול זה הוא אמיתיות חיות הנבראים. But really, this is really what gives life, meaning the people that wake up in the morning and say, I need to conserve my energy, I need to conserve myself, I can't overextend myself, and so on. They're missing what really gives energy to life. This is what really gives life to life. This is the life force. The life force is when a person dedicates himself to using himself to serve God. וכך אמר רב המגיד, שלכן המלאכים חיים יותר מהנשמות שבגופות מחמת ריבוי היראה שלהם. And the Maggid gave an explanation of this. We know that the Maggid was very, very well versed in the Kabbalistic world, and so he had a very good understanding of angels. And he said this is the reason why angels live so much longer than people do. Because angels are constantly consumed by their fear of heaven. Meaning they're always experiencing the fear.
It's that same idea.
And that gives life.
Yeah.
You think it would be the other way around. People think, if I'm going to be consumed by my passions for God, or whatever it is, then I'm going to burn myself too quickly, burn out. But the truth is that is what ensures that there is life. And we said that in chapter 35 in Tanya, I don't remember if we mentioned this yesterday, but there he has the mashal from the Yanuka in the Zohar, that shemen al roshcha lo yachsar, that you should never be lacking in oil on your head. And the idea there of oil is that oil is what prevents the wick from burning out too quickly. Because if you just light the wick, it burns for a few seconds and it's over. The oil keeps it going because that's the burning material. That's the fuel. What is the fuel spiritually? The fuel is Torah u'masim tovim, the Torah and good deeds that a person does. They become the fuel from which the Shechina, the soul, can burn on top of the person's head. And the quality of that oil depends on how much passion was put into doing the Torah and the mitzvos. That's the mashal that he brings in chapter 35. So this type of nullification before God, when a person is consumed is like nullification, to do the actions, to do the prescriptions, the commandments that God prescribed, that is what keeps reality going. Still, there is a side that it is a land that consumes, and that is the tchelis, in the sense that it consumes those who fight against God, or those who are mutinous, rebellious against God. It does consume them. There is such a thing. Moshe katuv kuma Hashem v'yafutz oivecha v'yenusu mesanecha mipanecha. So the blue thread is a sign of might, like we said, and the might here works against the enemies of God, as it says that when the first time that they embarked on a journey in the wilderness, Moses, as in Parshas Ba'aloscha, in Numbers, in Bamidbar, so there Moshe Rabbeinu starts with Kuma Hashem ve'yafutz oivecha. Rise Hashem, like there was the first time they were traveling with the Ark of the Covenant. Rise Hashem, and then what will happen when you rise? And all your enemies will be dispersed and run away before you. Because there is the element of might here, which we said, because it's a thread, and because it's blue, and because it's destroying, it's consuming, because that thread is that color, the blue, is what's consuming the wick in the end, and consuming the oil. So it does also consume the enemies of Hashem. And the point here is that this light is powerful enough, meaning that it's like the idea that when I wear a tzitzis, it helps me fight my evil inclination, because it affects even my evil inclination. You think about this. The fact that the Torah says, do not steal, does not worry most of the thieves in the world. They don't care. So what if the Torah says, I'm going to steal? But here, when I'm talking about myself, if I have any kind of negative thought, it does affect it, because I'm wearing the tzitzis. So it does consume that part of me that wants to pursue something that's forbidden.
That's the story in the Gemara of the guy climbing up the steps and the tzitzis going to the steps and he went back.
Right. The very famous story. I don't remember the whole story.
So there was somebody whose name I don't remember, and he had a tremendous desire for a certain young lady who was working. He switched his tzitzis like 10 times. Remember, he had to wear them. He took them off and put them on again. He took them off. Climbing up the ladder to go.
Okay, so maybe it's another one.
Protect himself from his
So what happened?
He climbed back down the ladder, and then I think she became religious. I don't remember the whole story.
So she was a very, very famous harlot, and he went to her, and she said, "Okay, so get undressed." And when he got undressed, he suddenly he sees his tzitzis. And that stopped him. So there's a famous thing in Menachos and the Gemara that when you look at the tzitzis, and when there was a blue thread, you looked at the thread, and you were reminded of the ocean, because the ocean's color is like the thread, and the ocean is like the heavens, the sky, as it were.
There's the famous question which I've never gone asked to. Why does they look at the blue on the tzitzis and just remember the heavens? Why does it have to go through the sea?
So now we'll see why. So, first of all, there's this thing that's been going around the last 20 years, that there's no color blue in the ancient world. There's no mention of that color. We've talked about this in the past. No, they didn't have blue.
Blue.
So, very interesting that you find Romans are late. I'm talking about the ancient world. There's no mention of the blue color before something like the 2nd century BC, something like that. And here we have in the Torah that we have tchelis, we have this blue color very clearly, from the time of at least the 13th century BC.
All the archaeological.
Right. There's nothing. There's no mention of blue in any of the documentation. None of the writings. So that's a big question. If they had anything that was actually blue, but they didn't have a word for it. And there's a whole question why they didn't have a word for it.
Okay, gotcha.
And we did have a word for it for a long time. It could be that. So people said, how can you not have a name for the color of the sky? How can you not have a name for the color of the ocean? This is very strange.
Did you ever hear this? Gil Locke years ago told me that in deep meditation, I'm being bekitzer, I don't remember exactly, blue, there is a vision of blue. Did you ever hear of such a?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly comes up.
Yeah, okay.
So here we see that the basis of, you could say maybe even the Tzitzit is the basis of all Jewish meditation, or what we call contemplation, because you're supposed to look at it, and when you're looking at it, so we talked about tasting it. We talked about right, you get a taste of the meaning, the reasoning behind the mitzvot. But here he's talking about just looking at it. So you asked why does it have to? Who said? Because you asked why does it have to be? Somebody asked. You did. So why can't I just go straight to the heavens? Why do I have to see the ocean? So the reason is because the ocean is Ein Sof. Always the ocean represents the infinite. And you can't really understand the makif, you can't really understand the encompassing light until you first understand the infinite. So you have to have two steps here. The first step is to say there's something infinite. Infinite, we mean limitless, meaning I'm going beyond my regular experience. The sky represents the encircling, because it encircles you. So you have to have both a feeling of non-limitation and that it's encircling. That's the true makif. And let's give an example. There's I think, very strong example that we could give, is that the problem that we have with all the mitzvot that we do is that we don't see, we talked about it, we don't experience, and we also don't see the reward. We don't see anything. So what is this like? This is like the state of affairs that now we're sitting in a lit room, but the moment we turn off the light, what's going to happen? It's going to become completely dark. And that goes against the grain of our thinking. Why? Because when you start something, it's been lit for 2 hours, let's say. Why is it that the moment you turn the switch off, it turns completely dark? Why doesn't the light linger? That's not the way that stuff works. It's supposed to be that there should be some leftover. Now the truth is there is a leftover, we just can't see it. So when the light is shining, it gives off visible photons. They're in the right range in terms of wavelength from 250 to 480, whatever it is. The moment you turn off the light, you're turning off those photons. But those photons are still here. The question is, why can't I see them? So you could see them. The way you would see them is you have to get an infrared camera, and you look, or lens, and you look at this room even after the light's been turned off, and you'll see that it looks actually the same. Because the temperature, the light has changed the temperature in the room. We've changed the temperature in the room. So you look at it and you see that it's lit, it's still lit. It's just not in the visible range of our eyesight. So it continues to be here. Same thing is true when you do a mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah, okay, so I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The moment you stop, why is it that nothing remains? Why is it that it's all gone? I put my tefillin on, I take them off, it's finished. There's nothing going on in my arm. That's not anything. That's not anything. You can do that you can do that with anything. There's nothing left from the mitzvah. Any mitzvah that you do, Shabbos is over, it's over. You do Havdalah, it's finished. Even you don't do Havdalah, it's finished. So we try to keep it going in some way, to keep a remnant, keep the atmosphere going. But that's a big problem, and it causes a lot of feeling of that this is futile. It doesn't work. By the way, same thing is with working on yourself. When you work on your midos, when you work on your behavior and so on, and you learn something, and while you're learning, you're a very holy person. The moment you stop learning, you go back to being the same person you were. There's very little that's left over. So the reason is that this is like the infrared light. It has a very distinct effect on the universe. In fact, everything is conserved. There's nothing that's not conserved. For instance, if I have a radio station and has an antenna and it's broadcasting, and let's say it broadcasted when radio started, let's say 100 years ago, okay? And that antenna is gone, so it doesn't exist for a long time. But if I would go out into space,
that exists, the waves.
The waves of what it broadcasts are still there. Yeah. The only problem is that it's not accessible to me because I'm not functioning that way. I'm functioning on a very limited basis. Like visible light, same thing. So the effect that I have of a mitzvah is very limited. Again, I'm not saying mitzvah is like a radio wave, I'm just saying it's the same analogy. It affected the world, but it went into what we call encompassing light.
It goes back into
right. And so what we talk about, the revelation of godliness or of the light, the revelation of God in the redemption, is that this becomes accessible.
Does it actually add to the... How can you...
It's here.
No, but I'm saying when it goes into the encompassing light, is that adding to the...
Yeah, of course. Well, it's changing it. I don't know about... It's not material, but it's changing. It's changing the structure of it in the same way that radio waves change the structure of the universe.
Yeah.
The universe, you don't get more universe, you just...
you get
the
more,
structure. So everything, and that's the statement that it says in the Tanya, that the redemption is made out of all the actions that we perform during the time of exile. Because it's been collecting. It's around me. It's everywhere. It's just that I don't have the vessel to see it. So we said that the vessel is the Beit HaMikdash. The moment that the Beit HaMikdash is constructed, that becomes like the lens that allows you to see it. Suddenly you'll see it. Suddenly you'll see what we've been collecting all this time. So that's the idea of looking at the Tchelis. The Tchelis gives you, like we said, a certain sense of the encompassing light even now. So what do you look at? You see the limitlessness of the ocean, that this encompassing light has no limits, meaning not limited by time either. When I do a mitzvah, it's propagating through the universe forever. It's always here. And it's also an encompassing, it's like the rakia. These are the two elements that are important to know about the encompassing light. That it's without limits, and it is surrounding. Yeah.
Does it work on a rabbah with the Averos? Did Averos go into an animal?
Great question. So Averos are not limitless. That's the whole difference between the good and the evil. The sages say, Meruba midat tova mi midat puranut. That the good is immeasurable, and the evil is measurable. So where does the negative go? The negative goes into something that's like a suit around you. It doesn't propagate.
It doesn't go into that.
It doesn't go into the encompassing light because it can't. It's not related to it. So it doesn't affect it, but rather you carry it around. So you carry it around for your lifetime, and then when you pass away, it's shaken out of you.
You say that those Averos go up. In other words,
no.
Hashem is very patient with us.
The patience means that He keeps it local. And He's waiting just for you to do tshuva. The moment you do tshuva, it's like you take your garment off, this soiled garment.
We are not punished for those collective averos?
Collective averos is a different problem.
You're talking about individual.
Individual.
I'm talking about collective averos.
Collectives already.
Okay, we'll get there, yeah.
והוא בחינת מקיף, דהיינו התנסות מידת מלכותו יתברך וטובה הארץ מאוד מאוד, למקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים בבחינת יראה. And that's the saying here that the land, what Kalev said or Yeshua said, the land is very, very good. What do we mean it's very, very? Malchus is very, very good. The moment you accept the yoke of heaven, the moment that you serve Hashem out of this passion of being consumed by what you're doing, that is the goodness of this land. The goodness of this land is that it allows you to do that. Now, we don't mean it physically. It's not like just the land of Israel, but anyone who has this feeling, in Israel, in the land of Israel, it's easier to come to it. But afterwards, you can port it everywhere. You can explain this everywhere. It's just that the land of Israel is more conducive to it, because this is not halacha. This is not like you can't bring a meiser from Chutz La'aretz. It's not something that's binding you. Like it's just on these borders. We're talking about something spiritual, and something spiritual is more conducive. It's easier to do it here, the proclivity that we talked about, but you can do it. But it's true everywhere. Okay, so Baruch Hashem.
Are we done?
We're done with this mimer. So tomorrow I guess we'll start something new when you won't be here. We'll have to be thinking of you.
We'll have to do a recap of that.